Hello my dear student of standard 10. How are you? Hope you are fine by the grace of Allah. Welcome back to my economics class. Today I will start chapter 9, the United Nations and Bangladesh. Lecture 1. At first I will discuss about the history of establishing United Nations. This century faced two world wars. Many countries were involved in them. The First World War continued from 1914 to 1918 and Second World War continued from 1939 to 1945. In these two wars, many people were put to death and destroyed many cities, towns and localities. Human rights had been infringed during these wars to a great extent. It causes terrific devastation and immeasurable sufferings and anxiety for the mankind. But the articulating peace-loving people were not silent towards the devastating during the wars in respect of setting conflicts between nations. They started thinking how to save this world from the atrocities of war. They felt the need of an organization which will work for complete resolution and enhancement of cooperation among the nations through dialogues. After First World War, the League of Nations was established on January 10, 1920 in order to maintain international peace and security. However, this organization could not go far due to the self-centered attitudes of many countries. As a result, the world witnessed the Second World War in 1939. Its massacre was many times higher than the First World War. By the end of the war, America had used nuclear bombs in two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On 6th and 9th August, 200,000 people were burned to death in it. Millions of people died, got injured and crippled, and became homeless. In this situation, the world leaders felt the necessity of a new international organization to maintain peace and security under the circumstances. And lastly, in 1943, conferences were held in Tehran and Moscow among four major powers countries like USA, UK, Russia and France. And after a long discussion, the then British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and US President Roosevelt finally formed the UN on 24th October 1945. There is some information about United Nations that is established 24 October 1945, present member 193, headquarters New York, first Secretary General Tocqueville from Norway, present Secretary Antonio Guterres, Portugal, membership of Bangladesh 1974, official languages of United Nations 6, that is Arabic, China, English, French, Russian and Spanish. This is the picture of Tocqueville and Antonio Guterres. Now, structure of the United Nations. There are mainly 6 supporting organizations of the United Nations. At first, General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, International Court of Justice, Trusteeship Council, and lastly, UN Secretariat. Now, I will explain about the organs of the United Nations. So, basically, the United Nations consists of 5 main organs. These are General Assembly. At first, General Assembly. So, the General Assembly comprises of all the member states of the United States. It is also called the Deliberative Assembly. General Assembly is where member nations meet to discuss and cast votes. A president is elected each year. In 1986, it was Humayun Rashid Chaudhuri from Bangladesh. Now, function of the General Assembly. It discusses international peace and security. It maintains the situation as well as issues related to human rights. It appoints new Secretary General. It collects new members, adopting new budgets, working out subscription rates for member states, and electing temporarily members for Security Council. Now, second organ of the UN is the Security Council. It has 15 members. 5 of them are permanent members. They are USA, UK, Russia, France and China. And these 5 permanent members have one special power is called veto power. That means there are 5 permanent members in the Security Council. They have veto power. By exercising this power, anyone can cancel or postpone any proposal of the Security Council. Now, the Economic and Social Council. This council has 54 members. Its assembly takes place at least twice in a year, either in New York or Geneva. This council works for the well-being of people, unemployment problem, expansion of education and human rights. Next, the Trusteeship Council, and which is currently inactive. 5. The International Court of Justice. It comprises 15 judges. It is located at Hague in Netherlands. And lastly, the UN Secretariat. This secretariat includes all officers and employees of the UN. The chief of this organization is the Secretary General. He is elected by the General Assembly for 5 years. This secretary runs all administrative work of the United Nations. Now you will watch one video on these topics.
The United Nations is an intergovernmental organization created for the purpose of sustaining peace throughout the world through specific means. Conceived out of the failed operation, the League of Nations, the UN has set in place special principal organs that empower it to function far more efficiently than the previous organization. In the video before this one, we explained the history of the United Nations and what its chief goal is. Now we will be analyzing the principal organs that keep the UN stable. The first organ of the UN is the UN General Assembly, which is a deliberative assembly of all United Nations member states. The purpose of this organ is to resolve recommendations to states or suggestions to the UN Security Council. They are also tasked with approving new members following a proposal by the Security Council. They also elect non-permanent members of the Security Council, all members of the UN Economic and Social Council, the UN Secretary General, and the 15 judges of the International Court of Justice. The second principal organ is the UN Secretariat, which purpose is to support the other UN bodies administratively. An example of this would be documenting reports and studies of the preparation of a proposed budget. Its chairperson, the UN Secretary General, is elected by the General Assembly for a 5-year mandate, and this is the UN's foremost representative. The next organ is the International Court of Justice, which is the universal court for international law. They have the final word when it comes to disputes between states within the UN, and they issue legal opinions on certain situations. The court renders their judgment by relative majority. Its 15 judges that are selected by the UN General Assembly serve for 9 years in their term. Next on the list is the UN Security Council, which specializes in maintaining international peace and security. Sometimes the group adopts compulsory resolutions. The council has 15 members, 5 permanent members with veto power, and 10 elected members. And the final organ still functioning in the UN is the Economic and Social Council. Their job is to promote cooperation between states as regards to economical and social affairs. This organ coordinates cooperation between the UN's numerous specialized agencies. Some of these agencies include the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Bank Group, the Universal Postal Union, and over 20 groups and subgroups in total. The Council has 54 members, each are elected by the General Assembly to serve staggered 3-year mandates. Those are the 5 functioning principal organs of the UN. However, for some time being, there was another organ called the UN Trusteeship Council. Their duty was to administer trust territories, which were certain territories transferred from the control of one country to another following World War I, or the legal instruments that contain the internationally agreed upon terms for administering the territory on behalf of the League of Nations. The Council has been inactive since 1994, when Palau, the last trust territory, attained independence. These 5 principal organs of the UN are not including its many special agencies and sub-agencies. The intergovernmental organization has done as much as it possibly can in order to maintain a level of balance and equilibrium, and by the nation's participation in the function of these groups, it further seals the solidarity of the Union. If you want to watch a video explaining the history of the United Nations, click here. If you want to watch a video on the history of North Korea and how it became the nation it is today, click here.
Now, objectives of United Nations. The first objective is that to keep peace throughout the world in cooperation with the United Nations by eliminating all types of threat, aggressive disposition and activities that may cause to break the peace. Second, to develop friendly relations and cooperations among nations by showing respect towards equal rights of all human beings. Third, to develop friendly relations among all nations in the fields of economy, society and culture as well. Fourth, to encourage respect for each other's fundamental rights and freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language and religion. Number 5, to settle international disputes by international rules in peaceful manner. Number 6, to recognize the rights of self-discipline for every nation and to keep up the same. And lastly, to follow modus operandi of the United Nations in order to implement the objectives in cooperation with the United Nations. Here, modus operandi means a particular way or method of doing something or the way in which something operates or works. So everybody, up to this today, stay at your home safely. Thank you.